As far as I know, we're back in action. Yeah, presentations are all good.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, if we're ready to start, I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency Governing Board meeting of Thursday, December 14th, 2023, and I'll ask you to start, Mr. Clerk, with the roll call.
All right, you got it. I have Devin Reese.
Here.
Clara Andreola.
Present.
Donald Abbott.
Here.
Jenny Breckus.
Here.
Mike Clark.
Present.
Naomi Dewar. Absent. Jean Herman.
Here.
Ed Lawson. Ed Lawson also absent. Kathleen Taylor.
Here.
Diane Vanderwall.
Here.
And non-voting member Beth Smith, also absent. All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And we'll start with our salute to the flag. Ms. Andriola, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 3 is the approval of the agenda. Dr. Smith, do we have any changes to the agenda at this time?
We do not.
Okay, I'll look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional questions at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the October 12th, 2023 meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for the question, or I seek a motion.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
And a second by Ms. Taylor. Any additional questions at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Clerk, public comment is yours.
We have not received any for this item.
Okay, I'll close item 5 and move on to item 6, consent agenda. Any colleagues wish to pull items off the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion on the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Vanderwell, a second
Second.
by Ms. Andriola. Any additional questions at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Clerk, please note Mayor Lawson has joined us. Thank you and good morning, sir, or good afternoon.
And can I get clarification on the second for the consent agenda? I have a first as Vanderwell.
It was Ms. Andriola.
Miss Andriola, thank you.
Okay, item 7 for business of the day. We'll start with item A, which is a public hearing. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman Smith for the record. Item 7A is a public hearing. It's a regional plan amendment for the Lerner Lemon project, possible adoption of RPG resolution to change tiers. And we have regional planner Chris Tolley to give us a presentation.
Mr. Tolley, welcome and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, governing board members. Chris Tolley, Team RPA. To get that straightened out. This item is a regional plan amendment for the Lerner Lemon Regional Land Designation Amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. That case number is RPA 23-005. The proposal is an amendment to the 2019 Regional Plan to change the regional land designation from Tier 3 to Tier 2. This is based on or required for a proposed intensification of a portion of the subject site, and we'll cover those details on a following slide. The approximately 19.926 or 20-acre subject site is located immediately southeast of the unimproved intersection of Lear Boulevard and Fleetwood Drive in Lemon Valley. The Regional Planning Commission, or RPC, found the associated Washoe County Master Plan Amendment in conformance with a regional plan at their November 20th, 2023 meeting. Finally, the RPC and regional planning staff recommend adoption of the proposed amendment to the regional plan. The site is currently located in the Tier 3 land designation, regional land designation. The proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan to change a portion of the site from rural to suburban residential necessitates an amendment to the 2019 regional plan to change regional land designation, again, from Tier 3 to Tier 2, because Tier 3 lands are limited to the existing densities. The existing density is set by the rural and suburban residential land use, which we'll look at in a couple of slides. And that sets the existing, we'll look at that in a couple of slides. Tier 2 does allow for up to 30 dwelling units per acre. However, the suburban residential land use in the North Valleys area plan allows a maximum of 7 dwelling units per acre. And this slide is showing the existing and proposed tier. Again, or on the left-hand side is the existing Tier 3, and on the right-hand side is the proposed Tier 2. And you can see that Tier 2 is located to the north and west of the subject site. As noted, the RPC found the associated Washoe County Master Plan Amendment, which we're going over now, conforms to the regional plan, and the proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan would change the land use on the northern 8.566 acres of the subject site from rural to suburban residential. Again, this is the reason that the tier change is required for the intensification. Materials submitted indicate the overall proposal includes a regulatory zone amendment, which includes 10.59 acres of high-density suburban, 5.53 acres of medium-density suburban, and 3.8 acres open space. Additionally, in October of this year, the property owner submitted an 87-unit tentative map, which is dependent on the outcome of this case. And here we can see on the left the existing land use configuration. The northern portion, again, is rural. The southern portion currently is suburban residential, and the proposed would make one parcel of suburban residential. Continuing with the overview. Following the RPC meeting for this proposal, the regional planning staff learned that the proposed wastewater treatment scenario was updated. The original proposal of connecting to the Reno-Stead Water Reclamation Facility, or RISWRF, would not be possible until approximately 2028. This is the case for all properties that are currently located outside of the RISWRF treatment boundary or sewer shed. And this timeframe of 2028 reflects when the Advanced Purified Water Facility, or APWF, connected to the RISWRF treatment facility is anticipated to be operational and able to further treat the treated effluent leaving RISWRF as part of the 2 million gallon per day expansion at the facility. The treated effluent sent to the APWF facility will ultimately be sent to American Flat, approximately 7 miles to the north of the RISWRF facility. So the subject site is being proposed to connect to the Lemon Valley Water Reclamation Facility, or LV Wharf. This different wastewater treatment scenario does not modify Team RPA's determination regarding meeting the standards set by policy PF1, that wastewater conveyance and treatment capacities are available and adequate. Additionally, the analysis contained in the RPC staff report and also referenced during the meeting incorrectly stated that the dwelling unit increase from existing to proposed was 50. The correct number is 60 units. And that data was updated in the RPGB's staff report. Finally, regional planning staff also investigated public comments provided during the RPC meeting and determined that the subject's ways are being appropriately addressed by ongoing jurisdictional and entity processes. And then to overview of the actual policies. For this proposal, the primary policies that set the review criteria are policy RF5, regional land designation amendments, and the overarching policy RC10, regional plan amendment findings. RF5 is shown on the right-hand side of the screen and sets the criteria for inclusion into different tiers, in this case, Tier 2 lands. Finally, policy RC10 of the regional plan identifies the 7 criteria that the RPC and RPGB must consider when evaluating regional plan amendments. And those are listed on this slide. And then to go over the analysis contained in the staff report, the proposal to change the approximately 20-acre parcel from Tier 3 land to Tier 2 land is not anticipated to significantly influence regional capacities or growth projections. In the North Valleys Area Plan, the proposed suburban residential land use allows for a density range of up to 7 dwelling units per acre. The proposed amendment may provide greater support for a range of housing types and sizes in the North Valleys area. The increase in potential residential density as a result of the proposed tier is limited to one parcel and would allow for a maximum of up to 139 dwelling units, an overall increase of approximately 60 dwelling units over what's currently allowed on the site. Additionally, materials submitted by Washoe County again identify that there is an 87-unit tentative map that has been proposed. To continue with the existing and planned development, there are multiple residential developments surrounding the property in the North Valleys area, and the proposal fits within the character of this area. The existing developments within the approximate proximity to the subject site may also benefit from public infrastructure investment by any proposed development. Finally, in regards to compatibility of the proposal with immediately surrounding areas, the materials submitted indicate that Washoe County planning staff consider the proposal to be compatible with neighboring properties. And then from a regional perspective, the proposal is compatible with existing development in the Lemmon Valley area. And then for additional context, the overall proposal, including the regulatory zone amendments, utilizes open space, the open space regulatory zone between the proposed 87-unit tentative map and the existing residences to the south and east, which acts as a buffer. And then talk about public facilities and services. Materials submitted by Washoe County indicate that public facilities and services will be available and adequate to serve the proposal as required by policy PF1. In regards to potable water and wastewater treatment, the subject site will be served by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority and the Lemmon Valley Water Reclamation Facility. All water and wastewater infrastructure required to serve the development are anticipated to be identified and appropriately conditioned during a future development review process. There is adequate capacity at these facilities to serve the increase in allowable density. The flood and stormwater facilities will be constructed pursuant to the Washoe County storm drainage standards and also appropriately conditioned during the development review process. Regarding transportation, the primary set of roadway improvements is anticipated to occur on site, with additional improvements to appropriately connect the subject site with Lemmon Drive. Regional planning staff reviewed the Washoe County School District's school zones and enrollment data for the previous school year. The development will be served by the Lemmon Valley Elementary School, the O'Brien Middle School, and the North Valleys High School. And Washoe County School District identified that they could serve a development of this size. In regards to natural resources, during the original request for comments, the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office identified a large archaeological or cultural resource being located in the area. In response to this comment, an archaeological cultural resource survey was conducted to confirm that the resources were not located on the subject site. Washoe County planning staff identified that any subsequent development request would include conditions regarding archaeological cultural resources and would have to comply with any applicable regulation. Finally, the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, and Washoe Tribe of Nevada were provided an opportunity to review the proposal but did not respond. The policies regarding the natural resources contained in the 2019 regional plan are sufficiently addressed by the Washoe County Master Plan and through the Washoe County planning staff's analysis of the project. A review of Regional Plan Map 4, the Development Constraints Map, did not identify any development constraints area on the subject site. And then regarding vision, goals, and policies of the regional plan, the subject site again is located in Tier 2, or is located adjacent to Tier 2, and represents an appropriate extension of Tier 2 lands, especially considering the limited scope of the project, one parcel. And then in regards to health and welfare of the community, the proposal would change the regional land designation again from Tier 3 to Tier 2, which would allow for additional residential density considering the proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan. Ultimately, the density potential increased from approximately 89 units to 139 units on the subject site. The health and welfare of the community is considered from a regional and non-jurisdictional perspective, and also through the lens of the regional plan. In regard to the proposal, the regional plan and Washoe County Master Plan amendments are limited in scope and do not present a substantial change from the current land use allowances. The proposal is expected to support additional workforce housing in the area with a similar development pattern and is compatible with surrounding properties, both from a regional and local perspective. Finally, proposal can be supported by public facilities and services as required by policy PF1. And then in conclusion, RPC and staff are recommending adoption of the proposed amendment to the regional plan to change the regional line designation again from Tier 3 to Tier 2. As a reminder, the proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan was considered by the RPC and found to conform with the regional plan. That does conclude my presentation. The motion is listed on the screen or on page 74 of the meeting packet. Thank you. Staff is available for questions as well.
Mr. Tully, excellent presentation as always. I'll start here with my colleagues at the board. Are there any questions from this body? Ms. Breckus, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have so many questions. I am pretty stunned by this. So let's just start with what I understand to be, there's a tentative map on this?
So the master plan amendment and rezone was submitted, I don't remember the exact date, but this was submitted well in advance of the tentative map. And then the property owner came in October of 2023 and submitted a tentative map as well.
To Washoe County?
Yes.
And has Washoe County approved that tentative map?
They have not, no.
Okay, but there's been a little change scenarios of how this is going to get sewered between what point? Because the materials say it's going to get sewered to the Lemon Valley plant, which I thought was not accepting new sewer and also in kind of dire situation because I've seen it flooded. Personally, stood on that ground right there at the Lemon Valley Park. So where in the process, how far along did it get under the process of review when people said, no, we can't sewer here?
I'll give the perspective from regional planning. So when we received the materials and looked through them, the proposal that was put forth was to connect to the reservoir facility. And
Risworth, always
yes.
with you. Okay.
Yeah. And then essentially following the Regional Planning Commission meeting and talking with staff and understanding what had happened in regards to the tentative map, and when they looked for a will serve, they were essentially told by the city of Reno that a will serve was not possible until the time frame of 2028, based off of what I said in the presentation, when we expect the advanced purified water facility to be online. So that changed the proposal from connecting to the reservoir facility to connecting to the Lemon Valley facility. And that there's still, from our perspective and looking through the lens of PF1, there's capacity both, and from the regional level that would be acceptable, and that would satisfy policy PF1 in terms of treatment capacity being available and adequate, planned for within a 10-year time frame, or a developer would be on the hook for constructing such a facility based off of the local jurisdiction's master plan. So again, we went from a knowledge base that was submitted to us that was updated basically while we were doing our review, and then now correctly being reflected in the materials submitted to the Regional Planning Governing Board.
Okay. Well, I mean, the question then to you is like, if PF1 is, I don't know, 5 years out, and that meets adequate facilities, what's the threshold? 10 years out?
So it's either available and adequate, and our view is that the treatment capacity is available and adequate now. But it's also, they would also satisfy that second chunk of plan for within a 10-year time frame, is as we look at, and I can let the engineering staff speak as well, but when we look at what we've learned over the last week in terms of the reservoir facility and the advanced purified water facility, that will be online in about 2028.
2028, yeah.
Yeah, and so that would also satisfy a plan for within a 10-year time frame in terms of looking at wastewater treatment capacity.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree, with the knowledge I have, which was sitting here in this chambers 3 hours ago and hearing from Tumwa how, the advanced water purifying is moving slower than anticipated, but our Reno staff has been very upfront, when asked recently, 28's the number, but we're looking at a tentative map, and tentative maps are only good for 5 years under statute, right?
That is, I'll let Washoe County staff
Okay.
speak to that.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
is not, that particular thing is not before us. We provide,
Yeah.
contextual information.
Yeah.
And that's available
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
But we did also speak with Reno staff about the reservoir facility as well as Thomas staff to get an update about the advanced purified water facility.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the contextual is, planned, and you have, a, backup to this regional change being a tentative map, and the availability of critical infrastructure isn't even there within the lifetime of the tentative map of 5 years. I guess, maybe there's someone who knows a little bit more about tentative mapping time, but in my world, it's 5 years, it might even be 4.
Mr. Smith, welcome. Please make sure you identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, thank you. For the record, Dwayne Smith, I'm the Director of Engineering here at Washoe County, and I just thought I'd take a moment to provide some clarification and some facts. For starters, there is sufficient treatment capacity within the Lemon Valley facility. So we're permitted at the state for 300,000 gallons a day. We're currently flowing about 110 to 120,000 gallons. When these discussions began, the regional concept and the approach is to, the bigger picture solution, I guess is the way to say it, is to ultimately sewer to the reservoir for that closed basin. But the capacity within the existing Lemon Valley Water Reclamation Facility, our facility, exists. And it exists, and therefore I can provide a notice of intent to serve, which is what was provided with the tentative map. When they come in for their final map, they will pay their connection fees and receive a will serve. That sewer will serve gives them the ability to perpetually receive service from our treatment plant. One other point of clarification, our plant is working very well. We stay within permit with the state. The facility was not underwater in 2017 or any time after that. We protected the facility very well. So I'm very confident that that capacity exists within that facility and will stay within that facility until such time as that some of the larger regional approaches can be recognized. I hope that provides a little bit of clarification.
That's
Okay, hold on, Ms. Breckus. Let me see if anyone else would like to jump in, and then we'll come back to you. Any other questions at the dais? Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. This is a little new to me, too, so I just would like to clarify that what my colleague was saying, it doesn't necessarily matter where RISWRF is or where this other project is, because you have the capacity right now at Lemon Valley for this project.
I think you said it much better than I think.
Okay, thank you very much. That was my only question.
Okay, any other comments from the dais? Yes,
question.
Ms. Breckus?
Yeah, so your capacity is 350 a day,
Our permitted capacity with the state is 300,000 gallons a day.
300 a day, and do you have operational capacity to do 300?
That is our permitted capacity at the facility.
No, I'm asking about your operational capacity, because I sit on the Joint Coordinating Committee for Tumworth, and Tumworth, I think, is 42, but really has an operational capacity of 28 at this point. So I've learned over the years that there's a big difference. So what is your operational capacity?
300,000 gallons per day.
Oh,
And let me
okay.
be real clear. Maybe I can provide just a little bit of
Yeah.
clarity. Each facility has a different operation approach and strategy. And so the operational approach and strategy at the South Turkey Meadows plant or at the Tumworth plant or at the Lemon Valley plant or at the RISWRF or at Lemon Valley are all different. And so they don't necessarily have some of the same constraints and some of the same issues. So our permit capacity is 300,000. That is what our plant could operate at and stay within permit.
And then how do you mitigate if you bring this 87 lots on that is accomplished by this change in the regional plan and then the master plan to the North Valleys area plan? How do you deal with Swan Lake levels? Because Reno has, had to do the shave over there, but there's only so much headroom on the Swan Lake levels. That's not necessarily to your operational capacity, it's really your effluent release.
Yeah, and I think then again, I need to go back, if I can step backwards just a second. And what I said a minute ago was that every facility operates differently and has different approaches to how they manage and deal or dispose of effluent. Our plant is such a small plant that the amount of wastewater generated, which goes through the process, the permitted process, we only discharge to Swan Lake about twice a year in very small volumes of water. So we do not contribute to Swan Lake, our effluent, in any meaningful number or value.
So,
So when we discharge to the lake, we follow our discharge permit requirements through the state. And that water that's discharged out of our polishing ponds, out of the evaporative ponds, and I need to use the word evaporative because the majority of the water evaporates, right? So again, twice a year we discharge a de minimis amount of treated effluent to the Swan Lake Playa. When there's no water in the lake, it goes onto the kind of the dry dirt. When there's water in the lake, it goes into the lake.
well, that is good about the evaporative ponds, because have you been fined by the state since 2017 for any breaches of those ponds into Swan Lake?
Not at all.
Okay. I have questions also about the land use designations in the North Valleys plan, but I don't think those are for engineering staff, and I yield the floor to others.
Any additional questions, especially as they relate to Mr. Smith's comments or Mr. Tolley's? Okay, Ms. Breckus, I'm going to come back to you. You'd like to speak with someone specifically from our planning staff now? The land designation staff?
I'm trying to understand, because I've worked with the North Valleys area plan for a lot of years, and I'm trying to understand that how it contours up to these Tier 3 lands up and around the lake. If we could bring on map, you don't have the regional form map of your presentation? It's
Not in here.
It's in my
Yes.
packet. It's in my packet. You guys have an overhead?
This.
Oh, that one, yeah. So the subject site is an edge to a whole Tier 3 lands, and those Tier 3 lands, because we're in the first iteration of the regional plan with the tier concept, I think we can all agree that's true, correct? How did we establish those Tier 3 plans up in this North Valleys area?
Thanks, Chris. Jeremy Smith for the record. Those were established through the 2019 regional plan update process through collaboration with the jurisdictional staff, and kind of a main component of the approach was to include city lands at Tier 2 or higher, and for unincorporated county lands, if they weren't targeted for some sort of active master planning that the county knew about, they pretty much got put into Tier 3.
Because
So
they were residential rural.
Well, they maintained
Yeah.
the planning that they had on them, or they were already built.
Yeah, I mean, what I see when I see this map is I see ridges and I see playas as Tier 3. And I know that's how the county established their residential rural up in the North Valleys area plan. So this is an etching into that onto playa land. And I just cannot support I just don't see how the regional plan, even in the form it is, can support more subdivision level, suburban level development on these lands. I think, they were Tier 3 for a reason. And, this land is pretty indistinctive to land that was flooded over on Ramsey Way or Bravo, where I stood in, those years. So I'm pretty shocked by this.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Possibly Washoe County staff or regional staff could speak to the elevations and the flood potential and the flood map changes that are occurring.
Yes,
Oh, there's flood map. Is this coming with flood map changes?
Cat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. So there is a tiny sliver of the northeast corner of this parcel that's currently in the mapped floodplain. That is a mapping error that's currently being corrected through the FEMA processes. Now, the existing zoning on this parcel has basically these 8-something acres of general rural on the northern portion, and then suburban residential, or for the medium density suburban, and then suburban residential for the master plan designation on the south. And the reason is that that area used to be developmentally constrained, but there were drainage improvements completed in the area. There were changes to the FEMA floodplain maps. And so right now, that whole general rural area, it is not developmentally constrained. And so that's why, and including with the development pattern around it, you have existing residential development in the county and also in the city of Reno. That's why we considered it to be compatible, extremely compatible, with the surrounding development, to change that portion of the parcel that is no longer developmentally constrained to a suburban residential designation.
May I ask a question on that? Yes. And if you're not the floodplain administrator, that's fine. So, and I know the improvements that have been made there, but tell me this, the air, the mapping change, is it going through it's got a CLOMAR, right? And then a LOMAR?
Right, that process is being undertaken from my understanding.
And the base map that is being amended, are those the new ones that have been done and adopted, all new, or are they the older ones that we're just keep amending? Does anyone have that technical information?
I will defer.
Okay,
to,
great.
Either engineering or I know the administrator might also have.
Yeah, because I have a lot of experience, more not so much up in this valley, but a little bit. And the understanding I have is that some of these maps are very old, and it's really most hydrologists, I think, who say, keep amending a 20-year-old map that hasn't caught up to all the changes and had a recalibrated new map is problematic. So, hi, can you tell us what the year of the base map is?
Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for Washoe County. Yes, the current mapping is based off of, I don't know what the exact date of the flood insurance rate map is, but we are in the process of having that updated. It is going through the LOMAR process currently. We are anticipating that information to be delivered to FEMA in the next month. And then we're doing a public outreach regarding that flood elevation, that base flood elevation modification. There has been more robust topography utilized in this study, which has translated into where this new mapping is going to show the floodplain.
But this tentative is based on the old maps and the amendment to the old map.
It currently shows the existing mapping as it stands today.
And it doesn't cause you pause that you're working with a really old map, bringing in new tentatives in such a sensitive area on that? Okay.
Okay, if there are no additional questions from the board, I'm going to go to public comment and see, Mr. Clerk, do we have public comment on this item?
Yeah, we received one, Ken Crater.
Okay, Mr. Crater, welcome.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Ken Crater, actually the developer of this project, and I just want to commend Chris on his staff report, very thorough. And I just want to make a couple of quick comments. First of all, Dwayne was absolutely correct on the wastewater treatment. When we first met with county and city staff, everybody agreed at that time, go ahead and sewer your site to the Reno Sparks water reclamation facility. But during the process, the city of Reno came back and said, hey, now we're not going to be able to accept the site until we have the issue in the American Flats properly permitted. That's looking like 2028. So then I went back to the county and Dwayne Smith, and I got an intent to serve letter because for the reasons that he said, that there is more than adequate capacity in the Lemon Valley water reclamation facility. But I've done a lot of review in this site. I've been been working in the North Valley since the 1970s. And the plan to decommission the Lemmon Valley wastewater treatment plant, you can go back to 1997 and find that that was the plan all the way back, way over 20 years ago, to ultimately decommission that plant. So I'm absolutely convinced that will happen. It's the right thing to do. And then in regards to the flood zone issue, as Janelle stated, the issue has to do with the contours. The mapping is based on very old contours, and now that the county has accurate contours, the flood zone is actually several hundred feet north of this property, and they're actually doing, and Dwayne or Janelle can come up and correct me if I'm wrong, they're doing a simple administrative change to that regard to correct the contour mapping for the FEMA flood zones, which again will now push that flood zone several hundred feet to the north. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, I'm very proud of, is I've been working in Washoe County a long time, and typically people have done development agreements to limit densities in these areas, but I believe in zoning, and so I'm using zoning as a tool, and that's noted in the staff report. Instead of coming in with a development agreement, we're going with the suburban residential for the master plan, but then I'm using a mix of open space zoning, medium density suburban zoning, and high density suburban zoning, which in my mind is a much better tool, because that legally caps the maximum density you could ever do on this project to just around 4.5 units per acre. And that way the open space zoning creates that physical permanent buffer against the existing homes within Washoe County. So we've worked very closely with county staff, with city staff on all of the issues on this project, and I believe it's a great little project. We've done a lot of community outreach. We're continuing to do more, and we only had one neighbor show up at the actual Washoe County Planning Commission, and the only comment we got from the Planning Commission is this how public outreach should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crater. No additional public comment, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct. We have received none at this time.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for any final comments or questions, and then I'll seek a motion. Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I'm happy to make a motion, Mr. Chair. Can you put it up on the screen, please? Thank you. I move to adopt RPGP Resolution 2308 regarding an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Taylor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Andriola. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Yeah.
Ms. Breckus, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm not going to support the motion. My opposition to it is founded on past consideration in this basin that we need to be working on updated, real today floodplain maps. It's great that the analysis on the old ones shows that the floodplain is moving up, but that's just not the lived experience. And so that's number one. Number two is if Mr. Smith feels he can sewer that and he's got a treatment plant doing well, great. But there seems to be an inconsistency in the record of where it is and when it is going to sewer. Three, and this is also, I don't do site visits for all these at the regional level, but I have been out on these sites, and I'm even afraid for subdivision tentative map construction in this neighborhood, because I've seen those houses, that schoolyard flooded, and I know that the RISWRF has been adding water and adding connections that they can't shave entirely off. So if we get into that kind of territory again, even if it's a graded out subdivision that can be held back, that's not going to be nice for those neighbors in that little, kind of isolated neighborhood out there. So I'm even concerned about that. So I'm not supporting that. I know I didn't, tie this to our regional plan policies, but I think PF1's interpretation is a little off. So I don't support it. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the board at this time? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Yeah, you got it. 1 second. All right. Devin Reese.
Aye.
Clara Andriola.
Aye.
Donald Abbott.
Aye.
Jenny Breckus.
Nay.
Mike Clark.
Nay.
Gene Herman.
Nay.
Ed Lawson.
Aye.
Kathleen Taylor.
Aye.
And Diane Vanderwell.
Aye.
Count 6, 4, 3 against.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The motion carries. Okay, next up, we have item B. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith, the record. We have item 7B, which is another regional plan amendment, this time for a new regional utility corridor. Chris is going to take us through this one as well.
Mr. Tolley, again, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you again. Good afternoon. Is that on? Hello?
Should be.
There it is. Yeah, there we go. Good afternoon. Chris Tolley, Team RPA. For the record, this item is another regional plan amendment for the Plumas Sierra Rural Electric Cooperative Fort Sage Transmission Line. That case number is RPA 23-006. The proposal includes regional plan amendment to establish a new regional utility corridor for a portion of a new transmission line.
Mr. Tolley, hold on one second. Ms. Prunty or Ms. Brecker?
I believe I have a disclosure.
Oh, okay.
This is the Plumas Rural Electric Cooperative. I am a customer of them for broadband service at a property I own in Plumas County.
Okay, well, thank you for the
Okay,
disclosure.
thank you.
We'll lodge it for the record. Ms. Prunty, is that sufficient?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. Councilwoman Breckus, do you think that the relationship as a customer will affect your impartiality and your decision-making?
I don't believe so.
I think you're fine to proceed.
And I think the rules for the disclosure mean that it affects you differently than it would everyone else within the same thing, and obviously with Ms. Breckes, it would not. Okay, we good?
I'm sorry. What? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tolley, sorry about that, Ms. Breckes. I should have asked for those disclosures initially.
Thank you. All right, continuing on. As is typical for these cases, the Regional Planning Commission reviewed the proposed project of regional significance to establish a new electric transmission line that carries 60 kilovolts or more at their November 20th, 2023 meeting, and found that the proposed PRS conformed with the regional plan. Regional Planning Governing Board is not required to review the PRS, as that is only required to be considered by the RPC. For the subject case, the RPC and Regional Planning staff recommend adoption of the proposed amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. And then finally, as you'll see on the subject site map, the proposed utility corridor is located approximately 1.15 miles north of the Fort Sage substation and runs west for approximately 1 mile to the Nevada-California state line, and this site overall is located approximately 40 miles north of the Reno-Sparks area. Continuing with the overview, the proposed 69 kilovolt transmission line emanates from the Fort Sage substation and runs from approximately 1.15 miles, runs north. So this is talking about the transmission line. Runs approximately 1.15 miles north, and this portion of the transmission line is located in an existing regional utility corridor. From there, the transmission line runs west towards California for approximately 1 mile. This portion requires a new regional utility corridor per the regional plan, which is being considered in this item. The transmission line continues into California, connecting to the Plumas Sierra Rural Electric Cooperative, Sierra Army Depot substation, and then to the PSREC Patton substation. The proposal supports resiliency of the wider region, and some of the benefits include to increase reliability of service to approximately 450 homes in Red Rock, to increase reliability of service from wildfire issues, and to assist the Sierra Army Depot in achieving compliance with the 2018 National Defense Authorization Act, and finally, to increase reliability of service to the Federal Correctional Institute that's in Herlong and the High Desert State Prison in Susanville. And then to talk about the policies, the case being considered is the item that are required by the 2019 regional plan, and these are found in policy RC6, which connects the requirements found in the Nevada revised statutes regarding projects of regional significance and those further defined by the RPC, of which, again, a 60 kilovolt or more transmission line is listed and requires approval by the RPC. And PF 11, which specifies that all regional utility corridors and sites are shown on map 3 of the regional plan. And that is a requirement for this one to establish a new regional utility corridor for the portion that's not located in one currently. And then again, as we saw in the previous item, this is policy RC10, which sets the review criteria for a regional plan amendment for consideration by both the RPC and RPGB. We'll go over the staff report analysis. In regards to existing and planned development, the proposed 69 kilovolt transmission line will serve the wider region, including portions of Nevada and California. In regard to natural resources, the use permit includes conditions related to sage grouse, migratory bird nesting, avian collision reduction, noxious weeds, and best management practices to reduce the risk of fire ignitions. And in regard to health and welfare of the community, the proposal to amend the 2019 regional plan to add a new regional utility corridor supports the health and welfare of the community and wider region. The proposed transmission line will serve, again, the wider region, including portions of Nevada and California. So that does conclude my presentation. The motion is listed on the screen or on page 94 of the packet, and myself, Team RPA staff, and Washington County staff are available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tully. Let's see if there are any questions by this body. Okay, I didn't anticipate any, so I'll go now to you, Mr. Clerk, for public comment, if any.
There's none for this item.
Okay, we'll return to the board. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt RPGB Resolution 23-09 regarding an amendment to Map 3 of the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Andriola. Can I get a second? A second by Ms. Taylor. Any additional questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, I believe. Yes? Okay, item C. Well, that'll close out our public hearing, so I'll come now to you, Dr. Smith, for item C.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item C, 7C, is an update on the regional plan update, and specifically our couple of big efforts that are underway to help facilitate that. So I'm going to start us off, and then we're going to be hearing from Nate Kusha about the NANR plan and Chris about the public infrastructure plan. Great. Okay, so as we discussed earlier this year, back in April, I believe it was, that we did a major overhaul of the plan in 2019. We completely basically threw away the old one and crafted a new one. So we suggested, and everyone agreed, that we don't need to do a major overhaul again this 5-year update cycle. We have to update the regional plan per state law every 5 years. So we're moving towards that. That would be October of 2024. We did know coming out of the update, we got some significant upgrades, I think, to our ability to evaluate these projects, and we saw that today. There was never a tiering discussion that could have happened. That is a new function of the regional plan that was able to come here, and we were able to have that conversation. Further, there was no region-wide standards table for infrastructure and the facility provisioning, so that's a new thing that I think you can see is something that we're very, interested in, and seems to be addressing those concerns. So we made some big changes in 2019, but we knew we weren't all the way to the finish line of the things that we needed to do to really re-embed ourselves in what state law says the regional plan should be doing. And we then, therefore, identified 2 policies in the plan. One was to create a natural resources plan that helped us to achieve that second section of NRS 278.0264, the contents of the regional plan, the NR section. So we have that big effort that's been going on. And we also have the public infrastructure plan effort, which helps us to meet further requirements in that contents of the regional plan statute about making sure that facilities are available and adequate to serve growth, and also that we are doing a summary of capital improvement programs and trying to understand how exactly we're meeting that demand in our region. And so we've been making some good progress on both of those efforts, and we're going to talk about those today and kind of our plans to utilize those efforts to get us to some policy upgrades and that completion of a regional plan update in October of 2024. Next one, please. So just before I turn it over to Nate to talk about natural resources, we had this idea, we've heard over the years many times that Regional planning should think bigger, should think broader. Now, we have a state law, our mandate is within Washoe County, right? Working absent the tribal lands, not the hydrographic basin of Tahoe, but everywhere else that regional planning statutes apply in Washoe County. But it doesn't go beyond Astoria or Lyon or any of that. However, clearly we're connected economically, we're connected in housing, connected through traffic, the whole nine. So we're thinking that maybe a cool policy to add in this 2024 update would be for us to have a requirement to bring together at least once a year a group of the larger region players and have a bit of a summit, one time a year where we can address regional growth issues and we can hear from those other communities about how what we're deciding and doing in Washoe County influences them and vice versa. So that's a policy that kind of stands alone, but when we wanted to make sure we reminded you that we were targeting for inclusion. So with that, we're going to pass it off to Nate, who's going to talk about our natural resource efforts.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Nate Kusher for the record. As Dr. Smith mentioned, we've been working on a couple different efforts in advance of our 2024 update to the regional plan, and we've been working on the NR plan for a few years now, and we've made some good progress. We're almost there, so I wanted to give you an update of where we're at with that. So first thing is we have officially launched our Natural Resources Data Portal. So this is a searchable data portal that can be utilized by anybody in their community, but really specifically we're thinking local planners, local jurisdictions, ourselves as well, to really utilize this information in our review of development proposals and anything else we want to do, and hopefully can help you guys out in your decision making as well. So in addition to being the backbone for the data portal, all the data that was gathered for this is also being analyzed to inform our policy discussions on natural resource topics for possible inclusion or refinement of existing policies within the regional plan. And we'll look through a little bit of that. So with that, we've identified 4 different natural resource policies that we have targeted for inclusion in the 2024 update of the plan. I think we presented these all to you guys before, but we'll do a quick walkthrough of kind of what each of these mean and where we're at in the process with these. So with that, we have our source water protection and our regional trails policies that we're looking at. We have already discussed both of these policies with the Regional Planning Commission, as well as our Regional Plan Update Working Group. We've also gotten feedback from the public at some of our different events for these. So these policies are well on their way. What we're really looking at as far as policy language for this is really to direct local jurisdiction master plans and affected entity facility plans to recognize the relevant plans. So that's the Source Water Protection Plan, as well as the Truckee Meadows Trails Plan. And then to also request comment from the appropriate entity during that development review process. So these ones, again, we've vetted these many times. We'll have some official language coming out ahead of our update, obviously, but these are well on their way. Additionally, we've recognized through past projects and discussion with staff that we really need to improve our coordination with tribal governments at a regional level and to consider the tribal perspective in our development review process. So we have not been able to get any spatial data around cultural resources and tribal information, things like that. It's obviously very sensitive data. And so we're trying to take another approach to how to best kind of plan for that and put some policy language in our plan around that. So this may include a request for comments from the tribe when a development case is in close proximity to tribal lands or there's potential interaction with cultural resources. All of these sort of parameters for when we're requesting comment from them is sort of still under discussion and to be determined, but we're in general agreement amongst our groups, the working group, as well as the public and stuff, that we should be doing this, and we're trying to get to what's the best way, what's the best approach, and what are those parameters. Again, really far along on this policy, though. That brings us to our last one. This is sort of our largest policy, and this is the natural resource consideration areas. Again, we've discussed this with it, so I'll touch on it briefly, but NRS 278.0274 does require a map of where development should occur. Right? And so we're kind of taking a reverse of that. We have our development constraints area, which is a very hard line map of essentially you can't build in this area. But it doesn't mean that there are considerations for natural resources outside of where that boundary is. So this map is to kind of help us give more information in that context. And really the two maps together will serve as our state required mandate map of where development should and should not occur based on natural resources. So we will be utilizing the spatial check of these data layers for every case that we do. We're also, it'll be a tool available for the local planners at the jurisdictions that they can use for their cases as well. And we're working on crafting this policy language with our working group. I believe the next working group meeting we're having, it's either that one or the one after, we're scheduled to talk about this policy specifically. So we'll start vetting this one, obviously, and there'll be a number of layers participating in this sort of spatial representation of this. Those will also have to be vetted as well, make sure they're from a reliable source and that they're updated regularly. So with that, that's all the policy stuff from the NR plan. But beyond that, we've been working a lot on writing the document itself for the Natural Resources Plan. So we have our topic narratives that kind of discuss opportunities and challenges on all the different topics identified through each of the categories of the Natural Resources Plan. We've drafted Most of these have been drafted. We've released many of them, and we'll be releasing more over the coming weeks. These are out for review with our steering committee and our various topic subcommittees that we've crafted for the Natural Resources Plan. We've begun drafting the background and intro chapter. That's largely written, actually, and we've begun working on the graphics and the document look itself as well. So the plan is that we will have a full draft document out for public review in March of next year. And then following that, we're hoping to bring it to you guys here for your acceptance of that final document in June of 2024. So that's where we're at with the NR plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about the public infrastructure plan.
Good afternoon. Again, Chris Tolley, Team RPA, here to provide an update on the public infrastructure plan. And as I think we try to mention each time we come before you, that we've really been working on this since 2020. And that would include the Truckee Meadows annual report component and trying to do a soft rollout to staff at the jurisdictions and the entities about how we envision this process playing out. So just as a reminder, the three goals that we came up with for the public infrastructure plan. Goal one was to create the document, and this is based off of policy PF1 as well as our state statutes. Goal two was to combine or coalesce and combine the available data on existing planned infrastructure and service provision, both spatial and non-spatial. So this is basically going out and asking the jurisdictions and entities for your data and bringing it in and organizing it by domains that we see listed in, again, the state statutes and the regional plan. And then goal three was to design and implement policy improvements to the 2019 regional plan. So we've been working on components really of each of these goals. Goal one, we have some outlines created for how the document or each of the domains would be constructed within the document. We have gone through and collected probably like 98% of the data that we need. And that would be public infrastructure data. And then we have, again, worked for the last 3 years to ask for the capital improvement plan data, and we'll go through this stuff on the slides, but from staff. So we have a great track record of working with them, and I think we've dialed in a request that we'll talk about too. So one of the biggest efforts that over the last few months is to actually meet with the jurisdictions and the entities to discuss, to get into the weeds about their capital improvement plan information, the data that's in there, as well as the public infrastructure GIS information to make sure that we had a good set of that we needed for each of the domains. And we approached this kind of specifically going with the entities first because we would be talking about a smaller section of information if we're talking about water or schools. And then we have the jurisdictions really at the end after we had already built up some idea of how we wanted to look. And two of the biggest were the first two meetings with Truckee Meadows Water, where we talked with them, with their engineering staff and their mapping staff about their CIP, and specifically about the things that are listed in there related to capacity. And if they had those spatially located, that we could utilize that information for representing. We'll hop into that stuff a little bit. But when we were talking with the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, what we had made the assumption of is that we were going to be focusing on capacity projects, so providing more capacity to and throughout the region. But what we recognized in talking with them is that was only capturing a portion of their CIP total, number of projects and value. And that was highlighted in our work with the Washoe County School District. So we'll get into that as well. But again, public infrastructure data compilation, bringing that in-house. We already had a good set of data from the 2019 regional plan update. So some of that was updating the information, organizing it again, and then producing a summary of the Tumwa and the Washoe County School District CIP information. And this is something that we did to facilitate the meetings with the jurisdictions and entities. And then on the right, you can see this is some analysis that we conducted for the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan based off of spending per regional land designations. So this is information, again, we provided, or we used as kind of an example to show how we wanted to represent this. And the count of Tumwa CIP data points is what's being displayed on both these two maps, and they're broken down by different geographies. And or different areas, I suppose. The one on the left shows the Tumwa fee areas and the number of points in each of those areas, and then looking at this slightly differently through the regional land designations on the right. And what we, again, noted is that we were capturing the capacity projects in this information and missing information, what we're calling community investment, which was really the rehabilitation and maintenance of each of the different domains. So this was in between the Tumwa and the Washoe County School District meeting is when we realized that we needed to show really the complete picture of CIP spending. And this is again showing the capacity side and focusing on the Washoe County School District. So they provide us, as part of the Truckee Meadows Annual Report, they provide data every year that we'll also talk about that in a little bit. But two of the capacity related things that we had identified as the administration expenditures as well as the school rebuilds. And those were focused on essentially three components of the Washoe County School District system. But when we consider the facilities modernization plan and the central transportation modernization, I don't know if that's part of that plan, but that would expand the capacity related stuff to include all of the community related investments that are occurring. And that would show the complete picture throughout the entire region, here being the Truckee Meadows service area. But again, the purple dots are related to capacity, and then the pink dots would be all the schools. And we have just recently received the facilities modernization plan, but we have not had a chance to look at it. So that would further refine the pink dots that you see. And then we envision, or it's partly in operation, but a PIP dashboard. And part of this is going to live on, some of this information that we're looking at here, between this and then the Tumwa, would be shown as part of the Truckee Meadows Annual Report webpage, as well as having the PIP having its own landing page, providing detailed information by domain, as well as the narrative component. So you would see that as kind of a Cliff Notes version of the actual public infrastructure plan document. And then to talk about the Truckee Meadows Annual Report, this is what we're focusing on currently, and this is really how the public infrastructure plan is going to be maintained year over year. And that is through requesting the data that we've requested over the last few cycles and updating it. So the Truckee Meadows Annual Report is produced annually, as you know, and distributed. We send out the ask, what we're calling the ask, the first week of January, typically. And the report is actually produced around the June, July timeframe, and that matches when we receive the reports back, which is a state required component, as well as when we have gotten the actual CIP and public infrastructure data back too. So that gives us enough time to compile that information and turn that around to submit that to the RPC and RPGB. And then here is the graphic that we're showing the jurisdictions and entities in an effort to hopefully simplify what we're asking for. It's not too different, but basically what we're asking for is a unique tracker that asks for unique domain-related information that we could turn around and utilize in our processes. And that is something that the jurisdictions would create and have created for the last few cycles, as well as the state-mandated annual report narrative that is submitted to us. So those are the two unique pieces of information that we're asking from the jurisdictions, as well as their current CIP and the next fiscal year CIP. And those things we don't we just basically asked for them to send to us. And that would, as well as the data updates, and that would be related to the GIS data that we use for our analysis. So PIP moving forward. So we will be continuing to work with a consultant to achieve the annual ask components, and that will basically go through April of 2024 to send out the document to facilitate any facilitation that needs to happen in between then and the April date, as well as a complete draft available for view in the May to June timeframe. And similar to the NR plan, we're looking for RPGB acceptance of the PIP in August of 2024 in advance of the October 2024 regional plan update. I think I said it correctly. Acceptance in August, regional plan update is October. There we go.
So back to me. I'm sorry, Jeremy Smith for the record. So yes, October 24, that's 5 years to the meeting that we will have, that we want to bring the update. So we're still committed to that time frame. We believe we can do it. You can see that we've made a ton of progress. I will say that it's been a bit like setting up one of those things you see on TikTok where the people set up those giant domino models, right? And then you finally get to press it and it all comes together. You know, as Chris mentioned, we started in 2020 talking to the jurisdictions about how we want to change and enhance the annual ask in terms of what we needed to satisfy that annual report that's required, and you know, to further our goals of understanding this public infrastructure information. So really at the end of this, what we're going to be able to provide is a regional picture of natural resources. What are topics that are of concern? And where is the data showing that these concerns exist, and have like a mapping version of that, as well as an overarching understanding, a very high level regional understanding of how we as a community serve and provide infrastructure for 5 key domains that the state law says that we should be involved in, and those are potable water, wastewater, stormwater and flood control, education or schools, and transportation. So those are the topic areas that the state law indicates that we should be in. And what we'll have is, again, this high-level summary, a document, and I can't stop thinking about, maybe I already mentioned this, but, I used to watch MASH in syndication. And, I guess probably saw it. In the middle of the camp there was the signpost, that had, like, Paris, New York, London, all of this. So basically, in our role as a regional planning, we're bringing together the high-level information, organizing it, and then having a document and a suite of tools that allows everyone to be able to go find where they can go to learn more and who's doing what, how it all works together. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you might have about our plans to take on next year.
Okay, I think this is for information and also staff direction, right? So does anyone from the board have anything that they'd like to add? Well, for my part, Dr. Smith and gentlemen, thank you so much for the presentation. I would just say keep going. Right? What you're doing is rather innovative. Several of these things are really exciting. I'm especially appreciative of the focus on our tribal communities, as well as some of the issues involving natural resources, but also the PIP discussion is very important. So thank you for that, and I can't give you any other direction beyond keep going.
Thank you.
Anybody else at this time?
Jeremy really that old that he could watch MASH?
I'm not sure about that either. We'll have to do the math.
This year I turned 50.
Wow. It's a young man like you, Mr. Lawson. Any other questions at this time? Okay, we'll close this item, item C, and now we'll move on to item D. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item D is a quick budget preview. As requested, we start our budget conversation for this agency in the October timeframe. We had an item at the October meeting where we discussed it, and then we want to check back in December, see how we're doing, and then ultimately bring a budget forward for adoption in February. But basically, we're trying to make sure we're working in lockstep and in advance of any of the budget setting that's happening at the local jurisdiction, so we're not surprising anybody at the last minute. Next slide, please. So as I'm sure you know, that the funding, the jurisdictional allocations for the funding for TMRPA is set in state statute, and it's related to the membership on this board. The City of Reno has 4 members on the board and thus is responsible for paying 40% of the allocation. City of Sparks has 3 members, 30%. Washington County, 3 members, 30%. So that's how it breaks down historically. We can go to the next one. Okay, so This table is showing our existing allocation from each jurisdiction. That's the column on the left that says existing allocation. Our proposed increase that I've contacted the city and county managers already with and had some brief discussions about is for a 2.5% increase to the annual allocation. And so really what that's designed to do is help us keep up with rising costs of services, help us keep up with inflation. You can see there in the 1, 2, 3, 4th column, the proposed increase amount, thank you, for each of the jurisdictions. So a 2.5% increase for the city of Reno would be about $10,600 additional. And for City of Sparks and Washoe County, it's about $7,700 each for that, for a grand total of about $25,000 additional to our budget from these jurisdictional allocations. So this is the point that we're at right now in the conversation with city and county managers. I haven't experienced any significant pushback or anything, and it seems pretty doable. I have heard from County Manager Brown, and he seemed generally amenable. So did City Manager Thornley. And I have a meeting set up for the first week of January with the acting city manager at the City of Sparks. So I will be able to, kind of put all that together and keep working on this to bring that budget back in February. Just to kind of talk about some of the assumptions we're working towards for the budget. Number one, organizational stability. It's always been a difficult conversation, I think, at this body to have this budget conversation. And what I've heard over the years is we need to establish stability for the funding of the agency. And so that's been a really big priority for us as we set the budget. And so we also have, especially during the COVID years, did a pretty good job of coming in under budget, and we saved some money. And so we've been building our fund balance. And so the proposal that we have to have this 2.5 increase to the allocations would further be augmented by use of our available fund balance, which right now is probably larger than the target ought to be, to be healthy and to make sure we can meet the demand of unforeseen circumstances like payouts for vacation. We want to have around a 10% fund balance has been the target. We're quite a bit higher than that right now. And so we want to judiciously target the use of that additional money. It's a one-time use, right? Along with annual small percentage-based increases to the allocations so we can get to that stability and have that right-sized fund balance. That's really what that organizational stability bullet's about. And so what I will bring in February is a 5-year outlook that shows how that can work, so we can see exactly where that hits. Another big thing that we're thinking about is employee retention. We have a great team, as you guys know. It's amazing, and we want to make sure that they're being recognized, and we have the capacity in our budget to keep up with inflation, with cost of living increases, as well as merit-based increases inside the existing salary ranges for the position. So this budget considers that. And of course, the continued use of all of the products and tools that we use, stuff like our contracted bookkeeper, contracted auditing team, our legal counsel, the data, the various data products we need to acquire to do the stuff that we do, like the consensus forecast. And then we also have minutes transcription. And then finally, to bolster the budget, we are engaged in 2 shared work programs. We have a long-standing shared work program with the Regional Transportation Commission. We help them with understanding and predicting future demand that then translates into their planning realm when they do their transportation demand model and their regional transportation plan. We also have been working a lot with the Western Regional Water Commission. This is the 2nd year of our shared work program with WRWC, and it's been very successful. Currently, Shawnee from our staff is helping them to revamp their website and bring it into 2023. So going well there. So those are some of the assumptions, and I'll bring more details, honestly, to that when I bring the February budget forward. In terms of the work plan and what we're trying to achieve in this fiscal year that's coming up, really it's going to be, we're going to have to continue to implement the changes of the 2019 plan. That's been working really well, but we have 3 kind of legs of our stool, as I like to talk about. We've got our regulatory leg. We have to do the cases like we heard today at the RPC and RPGB level. We also have our regional coordination role. We're always bringing together folks, like, for example, we're leading the charge to bring together the jurisdictions on the recent passage of AB 213, which addresses affordable housing. So we're making sure that we're staying coordinated as a region on that response. And then we have our data analytics leg, right? All of the work we do, future modeling, spatial analysis, that sort of thing. So really, we're going to continue to do all of that. We're going to complete the NR plan and PIP, as we just saw in the last presentation. And we're going to complete that October update, and we're going to get that 5-year update done. And then what the vision that I have that I wanted to kind of introduce, maybe it's for the first time today, is that much like the NR plan and the public infrastructure plan create kind of a reference plan module for our regional plan, which really sits as the policy document, these informational documents help us address concerns, do that work, find more information. There's sort of one missing element. We've got natural resources covered now. We're getting there. We've got the infrastructure piece. We've got our arms around it. But the piece that isn't transparent and out there for everyone to see and poke is the spatial modeling, population, and sort of housing component that we also participate in. So really to complete the trifecta, I'd like to create a third reference plan as we move forward past the update period, where we're really unpacking exactly how we bring the data together on the parcels, how we forecast the future, what are the assumptions, what's the methodology, and then bring in that housing component too that we've historically done. So that would be part of what we would be shooting for in fiscal year 24-25. So with that, I would just ask that you ask me any questions that you have, and then maybe just recommend that we go ahead and bring it back a budget for February for adoption.
Okay, Dr. Smith, let's see if anyone has any questions or comments about the materials.
Just a quick comment.
Mayor Lawson.
Jeremy, I wanted to say thank you for getting this out early. In the past, we have not had this out early enough, and I believe this will be the first time we've actually done a 5-year update on time. So, but yeah, it's well appreciated for us when we're doing our budgeting if we already had that information for our local jurisdiction budgets. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, I'll ask Mr. Clerk, because I don't think I asked on the last agenda item if there was public comment.
Okay, I see Lauren and Sienna, they probably want to say something now. No, we have none.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll return to the board, and can I ask for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to recommend that TMRPA staff develop a fiscal year 2024-25 budget that considers the assumptions in this report, as well as discussions during today's meeting, and that a proposed budget be brought back to this body for review and possible adoption during the February 8th, 2024 RPGB meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Can I come now to Ms. Herman? Did you have a comment on this item?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Third.
So we have a motion, a second, and a third. They can fight it out afterwards for who gets the second and third possibility, though. But I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll close out the item 7 and move on to items 8. 8A, I understand we are without Dr. Smith today. Beth Smith, that is. And so we'll skip item 8A and move on to item 8B. Are there any members' reports? Okay, I don't see any member reports, but I'll come now to you, Director Smith. Do you have any reports?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a very brief report from me. I just want to say thank you very much for ratifying my contract today as part of the consent agenda. Greatly appreciate that aspect of today's meeting. Thank you. Some recent events. So both Chris and I presented at the Nevada APA conference up at Lake Tahoe this year in October. Did 2 presentations. So in the morning, we talked about the public infrastructure plan. It was very well received based on the feedback we got back from APA. And then in the afternoon, I participated with Southern Nevada Regional Planning, TRPA, and the Regional Trails Group to talk about natural resource and trails planning in the state. And that was a really cool session as well. We did kind of a silly thing where we brought a fake fire and we had like a campfire chat, so that was kind of neat. We also did a regional plan update working group meeting. That's something that we've done in the 2019 plan. As I've mentioned, it brings together the staff from the jurisdictions and entities, so everyone's on board as we march towards that update. And we really honed in on the public infrastructure plan aspect back at the November meeting. So we feel really poised to implement that slide that you saw that Chris showed that talks about the things we're asking for and that they will be the things that we need to produce that PIP annually, or updated annually at least. We also presented the PIP to some other groups, including the RTC Leadership Group, as well as the American Society of Civil Engineers. On upcoming items, pretty exciting. We have a conformance review going to the RPC in January for the new Washoe County Master Plan. So we're excited to be reviewing that, and with Reimagine Reno and Ignite Sparks, then we'll have an updated Washoe County plan as well. The region's looking good in terms of updates to plans. So that's coming. We are hosting a community conversation at the Discovery Museum on January 17th, I believe is the right date, at 6 p.m. And we're going to be talking about the public infrastructure plans. We can definitely post a notice of possible quorum to that event, and you guys would be more than welcome, obviously, to come to that. We'll have a brief, or probably like a half-hour presentation, and then we're going to have some charrettes and get some feedback from the community about infrastructure planning. And so with that, our next RPGB meeting is scheduled for this chamber on February 8th at 2 p.m. And I would just like to wish everybody a very happy holiday season, and thanks for all your support over the year.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll close item B and move on to item C. Ms. Prunty, any additional comments today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. No comments or report from me, just warm wishes for a lovely holiday seasons to everybody.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. I'll close item 8 and come to item 9, board comments or requests for future agenda items. Any board members? For my part, I'll just say thank you to Dr. Smith, and I'll reflect that although you were not willing to take a substantial raise, we tried to honor you with what was happening. So thank you for your commitment to your staff. I appreciate your hard work this year and looking forward to the next year as well. Okay, we'll close that item out now and come and see if there is any public comment or written correspondence, items 10 and 11.
We have received no public comment.
Okay, we are adjourned.